Go, folks. Mayor, we good?
I think so.
Okay. All right. All right, ready, guys? All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rich Gaitis, Executive Director of the Office of Emergency Management and Communications. I want to welcome you all to OEMC. Over the last year, the Vehicular Hijacking Task Force has operated out of the Operations Center here at OEMC, where they have direct access to cameras, including LPRs, and critical information from our 911 floor. I'm very proud of the joint efforts made by the Chicago Police Department and the many federal, state, and local public safety agencies involved, including Illinois State Police, Cook County Sheriff's Office, and multiple bordering municipalities. OEMC provides the task force with the resources and technology that exists within our Operations Center, which allows for strategic oversight and coordinated response to incidents. The Operations Center is co-located on the same floor as our 911 Center. The close physical proximity of these operations allows for real-time information sharing and notifications. Our 911 call takers, dispatchers, watch managers, and supervisors work with responding officers and the task force on identifying trends or patterns that may emerge. They also collaborate on incidents that could involve the pursuit over multiple zones and districts. The 911 call takers and dispatchers at OEMC serve as the front line and the voice of calm for residents during their most trying moments. If you are a victim of carjacking or see suspicious activity, report it immediately. It's imperative that residents know when calling 911 to report a carjacking, they will need to provide call takers and dispatchers with critical information for the responding police officers. Our 911 personnel will ask your location, description of the offenders, description of the vehicles, license plate number, even if it's partial, direction of flight, and more. This information is vital to the task force's success. I want to commend the members of the Chicago Police Department's Vehicular Hijacking Task Force and the multiple local, state, and federal agencies involved on their hard work and commitment to the residents of the City of Chicago and our surrounding jurisdictions. Thank you. Now I'd like to welcome Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Mayor.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. We're here to share an update on our efforts to combat the rise in vehicular carjackings. I want to recognize and thank Alderman Walter Burnett, whose ward we are sitting in. And Burnett's ward spans many areas of the city, and I know that he's had a particular concern and focus on vehicular carjackings. So I want to thank him for his work and his partnership. We also have Westchester Village President Nick Stecker and Westchester's Police Chief Daniel Babbage. Thank you both for being here. You've heard from OEMC Director Rich Gaitis. Superintendent David Brown will be speaking. And I also want to thank the State's Attorney's Office, in particular Kim Ward, who's the head of felony review, who's also here with us today. You're going to hear from other folks. I want to thank Cook County State's Attorney, also the State Police, because this work in really going after and preventing against carjackings has to be a collaboration, not only within city government, but with our regional partners. No resident in the city of Chicago or the Chicagoland area deserves to live in fear of violence. But the sad reality is that in the last year and a half in particular, there's a very real and pervasive fear of carjacking across our city, our region, and our state. And in actuality, carjackings have become a national crisis. Another reality is that criminals do not care about municipal boundaries and intentionally move across municipal boundaries from one jurisdiction to the next in hopes of confounding law enforcement efforts to bring them to justice. This is why regional collaboration and partnership are key for a range of issues, but especially when it comes to violent crime. To address this issue, we have been collaborating with partners for over a year now. Fellow mayors and law enforcement partners are standing together with me, CPD, and others to say that we acknowledge and understand the concerns and fears of our residents, particularly when it comes to carjackings. But we've been working diligently for some time now to fight back against this surge in carjacking. We also want to reassure our residents that regional law enforcement has been executing on a strategy to address this problem with notable success, and we will be expanding that strategy. In early 2021, we responded to the rise in carjackings that we were seeing by establishing the Vehicular Hijacking Task Force. This task force uses all of the technology available here at the 911 center, including a growing network of pod cameras, license plate readers, to track and identify vehicles taken and used in carjackings. Videos and information from pod cameras and license plate readers are fed to our strategic decision support centers located in CPD's police districts, which assist in responding to carjackings. OEMC also broadcasts information from the license plate readers over police radio, which helps officers quickly respond if there's a hit for a vehicle involving a carjacking. This technology also has tremendous impact on our efforts. So, for example, on January 27th of this year, a Chevy Traverse was taken in a vehicular hijacking in the 7600 block of South Cicero at 8:41 a.m. A license plate reader hit was broadcasted, and CPD's task force quickly coordinated with OEMC resources and OnStar to track and slow the vehicle. The occupants in the vehicle fled in multiple directions, but were eventually apprehended. The vehicle and a weapon were recovered, and several individuals were arrested and subsequently charged. This is why the task force work is so important, and the superintendent and others will elaborate on other anecdotes that demonstrate the importance and power of this task force and regional collaboration. This task force, as I said, is much more than just CPD and OEMC. The task force has doubled in size to perform joint vehicular hijacking operations with partners from local, county, state, and federal law enforcement agencies. During these joint operations, we have the CPD helicopter and a Homeland Security helicopter assisting in tracking of these stolen vehicles. As I said, crime knows no bounds, and this issue affects all of us. Therefore, this regional partnership is critically important. We meet regularly, share data and strategies, and perform these joint operations to make a true impact on safety for our residents across the region. This is highly collaborative, data-informed task force, and it's yielded results. And we are making arrests, and depending on the evidence, charging with criminal trespassing, possession of a stolen motor vehicle, or the more serious charge of vehicular hijacking. And still, we know that there's more that we can do. The task force right now operates on 2 watches, and we're looking to expand that beyond that. We're also looking to collaborate with our federal partners on a deeper level to determine which cases can be considered for federal charges and prosecutions. And as I said, Superintendent Brown will go into further details about some of the data and the other work in collaboration. But the takeaway is this: we have to be, and we have been, proactive and united, working to pursue and arrest carjackers. And we will continue to do this work. And I just want to uplift and highlight, and I wonder if we can turn back to the first slide. If you look at this slide, it gives you a sense of the level of collaboration that we have across the region. Cook County Sheriff's Department, and again, thank you, Director Schmitz, Berwyn Police, Cicero, Oak Park, Westchester, who's here with us today, Hinsdale, Maywood, Robbins, Dalton, Indian Head Park Police Department, Downers Grove, Villa Park, Calumet City, and also the Illinois State Police, Illinois Secretary of State Police, Lake County of Indiana Sheriff's Department, and the FBI. This is truly what we mean when we talk about regional collaboration at all levels of government. I also want to just thank all of the mayors and village town presidents across the region. We get together and talk on a range of different issues, whether it's on economic development, transportation, the environment, a host of other issues. But this is one, because of that regional partnership and trust, that we've been able to expand to help protect our residents across the region. And we invite to join us any other mayors or village town presidents that understand the value of this collaboration and want to address the challenges of carjacking that we're seeing across the region. And with that, I'll turn it over to Superintendent Brown.
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon to everyone. And thank you to our federal, state, county, and suburban government law enforcement partners as well as who's standing here with us as a united front against carjacking. When we talk about police work and our commitment to ensuring visibility, engagement, and inspiring collaboration, this is exactly what we mean. Chicago Police Department has been addressing carjackings by working side by side with both law enforcement and community partners in every neighborhood. Public safety is a public responsibility, and it takes an all-in effort. An effort that considers the sobering statistic that half of these arrests are juveniles, including children as young as 11 years old, and many are repeat offenders. That's why it is crucial that we address the root causes of violence and crime with robust community services. While there is much work to be done, we are making progress. So far this year, we've had 177 carjackings compared to 230 at this same time last year. That's a 23% reduction. We will not let up. We will be relentless. As Mayor Lightfoot said, we are expanding the Vehicular Hijacking Task Force to all 3 of our watches to address the overnight shift. Currently, we're on the day shift and evening shift, and now we're adding an overnight shift to the task force. We are also growing our citywide network of pod video cameras and license plate readers across the city. We have people on the ground, we have people in the air, in helicopters, tracking and arresting carjackers. Across the city of Chicago, our officers and detectives recently made several notable arrests. I'll recount 2. The first, on January 18th, 2022, a Honda Accord was taken in an aggravated vehicular hijacking in the 1400 block of West Farrell Avenue at approximately 6:10 a.m. Multiple license plate readers were hit and broadcast the car's direction. On January 26, our Vehicular Hijacking Task Force members working with OEMC tracked the vehicle, and several more license plate readers hit and broadcast several more locations. Officers in the 1st District located the vehicle and conducted a traffic stop in the 200 block of East Lower Wacker Drive. An offender inside the vehicle discharged his weapon at an officer, at a Chicago police officer. Gunshots were exchanged, striking one of the offenders. 3 offenders were taken into custody. 2 weapons and the vehicle were recovered. 24-year-old Edgardo Perez was charged with 1 felony count of attempted first-degree murder, 1 felony count of unlawful use of a weapon, and 1 misdemeanor count of criminal trespass to a vehicle. 21-year-old Jesse Sanchez was charged in the same incident with 1 felony count of aggravated unlawful use of a weapon, 1 felony count of possession of a controlled substance, and criminal trespass to a vehicle. 20-year-old Noel Centino in the same incident was charged with 1 felony count of possession of a stolen motor vehicle and an issuance of a warrant. A second notable carjacking arrest. An 11-year-old boy who was previously been arrested for aggravated vehicle hijacking was arrested on January 26th by the Vehicular Hijacking Task Force after being identified as the individual responsible for a carjacking in the 11,000 block of South Harding Avenue on November 19, 2021. Officers observed this 11-year-old exit a Chevy Malibu that was reported stolen on November 13, 2021. The 11-year-old was charged with 1 felony count of aggravated vehicle hijacking with a weapon and criminal trespass to a vehicle. Let me just recount this repeat offender idea that we mentioned earlier. So just this 11-year-old. He was arrested November 26th for vehicular hijacking. He was arrested October 30th, 2021 for criminal trespass to a vehicle, July 6th, 2021 for criminal trespass to a vehicle, October 31st, 2020 for criminal trespass to a vehicle, June 30th, 2020 for criminal trespass to a vehicle. May 26th, 2020 for criminal trespass to a vehicle. Again, June 27th, 2021 for possession of a stolen motor vehicle. June 27th, 2021 for aggravated fleeing. And October 31st, 2020 for vehicular hijacking. And again, June 27th for resisting obstructing a police officer. So this idea of resources for our young people is real. It is critical to our success. And now I'd like to turn it over to, we're looking at Assistant State's Attorney Kim Ward for comments. Kim?
Thank you, Superintendent Brown. I appreciate it. When State's Attorney Fox was elected as the State's Attorney, she made it very clear that her focus was going to be on violent crime. And one of those violent crimes that is prevailing our communities is carjacking. It has been with great pleasure that I've been working with our law enforcement partners in the task force since the beginning of the inception of that force. Without the collaboration from our law enforcement partners, we would not have been able to charge the number of people that we have been able to charge in the carjackings that have happened. In fact, in 2021, of the cases that felony review had been contacted by law enforcement for charges, we were able to, in the city of Chicago, approve charges on 91% of those individuals. The conviction rate for those was 93% in court. As far as the county, there was a 93% countywide approval rate of cases where felony review was contacted and provided evidence and charges were sought with felony review. Those approval ratings are a direct reflection of the collaboration that we have been doing with the law enforcement partners across the state, including the Illinois State Police, the Chicago Police Department, our federal partners, as well as the suburban departments. We will continue to make that a priority, to seek justice and to hold responsible those who are out on the streets and are carjacking are the individuals in our communities. We will work tirelessly with this task force. We are proud to be part of this task force, and we are going to continue to drive to make our community safer. With that being said, I would like to introduce Nick Stecker, the president of the Village of Westchester.
In 2020, our small bedroom community experienced 7 vehicular carjackings. Since our involvement in the task force, we've seen a dramatic drop-off to 0 within the last 6 months. This is a prime example of when we put our resources and our support behind the men and women of law enforcement, that they will bring the bad guys to justice. This task force here can serve as a successful model for other targeted violent crimes that cross over multiple jurisdictions, as you see here, and Westchester is proud to be a part of the solution. With that being said, I'll introduce my chief, Chief Daniel Babbage.
I'd like to take this time and just say thank you to the mayor and the superintendent and everybody involved in this organization for this carjacking task team. Nothing worse than being a chief and you don't have no answers when you have to face a victim of your community that they were carjacked, especially when the last 7 carjacks were women and a gun was put in their face and they lost their phone, their purse, their car, sometimes even a small child inside, where they were able to get their child back through negotiating and not being harmed. Especially when you see footage of these women being put to the ground and these individuals taking their car. I'll just end it with this. It shows when law enforcement and all parties work united together, you can make a difference if you want to. But we all came together because we truly really care about our community, our residents, and doing the right thing and taking these individuals and bringing them to justice. And I just want to say again, thanks to the mayor of Chicago, the superintendent, and all these members of this task force, because without a brotherhood working together, this would just be ongoing. And I got to say this, and we had 7 carjackings. We haven't had another one in the last 4 months since this unit came into operation. So it's proven itself that it is doing something instead of some communities doing nothing. And thank you.
So I just want to pick up, before I answer questions, I want to pick up on the thing that the chief described. What I know, and certainly what I've heard from victims of carjackings, is this is the thing that really brings fear to people. To be in your car, driving, going about your business, running an errand, and then worrying about somebody coming up to you at a stoplight, at a gas station, at a grocery store, and sticking a gun in your face to take a car. That has got to be one of the most unnerving and scary things that anyone can experience. And unfortunately, as the chief was right, Chief Babbage was right, a lot of times this is affecting women who are running errands with their children in the back seat, elders who are out just living their lives. That's why this partnership and a relentless focus on addressing this issue of carjackings is so important. One other thing I want to add before I take your questions is this. We are seeing an inordinate number of juveniles that are the perpetrators of these carjackings. I think in Chicago, we've consistently seen 50% or higher of the people that we are arresting are juveniles. And unfortunately, the story that that Superintendent Brown told about the 11-year-old having multiple arrests, unfortunately, that is a very common thing. Now, I'm not one who believes, particularly when it comes to juveniles, that you arrest them and lock them up and throw away the key. That can't be the answer. It has to be something more. But what also is true is that there's got to be accountability. We teach our children that from the youngest possible ages, responsibility for your actions. So we are continuing to work with our county partners in particular, had recent conversations with the state's attorney. I'll be reaching out to the public defender, and we have a working group that was stood up based upon a meeting that we called back in the fall to continue to look for ways in which we can intercede and provide meaningful interventions, particularly when it comes to these juveniles. It cannot be arrest and release, because we're not solving any long-term problems by just doing that. Yes, there's got to be accountability, but I think some of these young people obviously have challenging personal circumstances, and it's incumbent upon us to understand that and then give them the opportunity to turn their lives around with community-based, proven intervention. And that's what we've also got to keep driving towards in addition to the work of this task force. But again, I want to thank everybody involved. I want to thank all the police departments, our county, state, and federal partners. We will continue to do the work, expand the amount of resources and focus on this issue that is very top of mind for residents all across the region. But we've also got to solve and stop the problem and not just be in reaction mode. And with that, I'm happy to take your questions.
Thanks, Mayor. We'll start up here. Members of the media, please keep your mask on when asking the questions. We'll start with Christian Farr from NBC. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And I know this is for the superintendent, but why do you think this is continuing to happen? I mean, we've had this in the media day after day after day, and also the benefit of that overnight shift, if you can kind of talk about that as well.
Well, why don't I start and then I'll hand it over to the superintendent. Look, we started seeing this rise in cases in 2020, and I'll be frank and say in Chicago, there was a correlation that we believe between remote learning and the rise in carjacking. Having talked to state's attorneys who were dealing with these cases in juvenile court and others, a lot of parents went to work during the day thinking their teenagers were logged on for remote learning only to find something else. And I asked, is there some new market for stolen cars. And unfortunately, the answer was no, that for many of these kids, some of whom had no prior involvement in the criminal justice system, this was pure boredom. But we're way past that point now. And we've got to bend the curve on this issue. This is why we've been driving so hard with the criminal courts, not to just process the case and then turn these young people back out into the community. We've got to do something to prick their consciousness. And frankly, for those kids who want to get out of this life, provide them with a way home. But there's got to be accountability. We can't keep seeing kids with these cases where they got 4 and 5 and more stacked up, and then they continue to reoffend. We've got to break that cycle, but we've got to do that in partnership with all the folks that are gathered here, as well as with the courts and the state's attorney's office. And we are committed to bringing everybody together, as we've been doing, to come up with some concrete solutions so we can stop this involvement of young people in carjackings, which threatens literally so many people and their safety. Sue?
Yeah, the resource expansion to include the overnight shift really is based on data showing us carjackings happens as early as 6 in the morning as one of the cases we recounted here, and as late as 4 and 5 in the morning. So we have to cover a 24-hour period based on data supporting resources committed full-time to just arresting people who are either, criminal trespass to a vehicle, stealing a car outright, or vehicular hijacking, which is a higher felony charge, holding guns on people. So we have to cover the 24-hour period with enough resources. As we are seeing success during the evening shift, then we see more happen after the task force gets off. So we have to expand our resources to cover the entire 24-hour period. Thanks.
Thanks, Superintendent. Liz Nagy, ABC 7.
Superintendent, there was somebody was shot and killed over the weekend near 24th and State in the South Loop. Just wondering if there's any update on that investigation and if that was confirmed to have been the product of a carjacking.
I don't have an update on that we were ready to give now. Brendan can get with you offline and give you an update. Thanks.
Yeah, we'll move on to Tamam Bradley, WGN.
Yeah, hi, Mayor, Superintendent. Can you speak to how you'll measure success of this task force, and when can residents expect to see significant reduction in carjackings as a result of the work this task force is doing?
Well, I think you just answered your question. We want to see significant decreases in a number of carjackings. I think we've made some progress, but not enough to any of our satisfaction. And as I said, it's got to be a multi-pronged strategy. We've got to be very aggressive in the resources that we put and commit to this 24-hour cycle. We've got to continue this collaboration across jurisdictional lines. But we've also got to answer the question is, why are these young people, many of whom have no prior involvement with the criminal justice system, now involved in something that is so risky, so dangerous, particularly involving firearms? And the only way that we can, I think, do that is to be direct with the ones who are caught, work with the courts and their families, and make sure that there's a measure of accountability, but also one that has community-based solutions that are going to benefit everyone for the long term. So the short term is, we've got to continue to see a decrease in the number of cases. We've got to expand the collaboration, but we've also got to ask ourselves and get at the root cause of what it is that's driving so many young people in particular to get involved in this kind of violent crime.
All right, Patrick Smith, WBEZ.
Mayor and Superintendent, Mayor Lightfoot, you talked about notable success over the last year. I wonder, how did the arrest for carjacking in 2021 compare to the arrest for carjacking in 2020? And how many of those arrests are for vehicular hijacking as opposed to trespassing?
Well, you know that there are 3 basic categories of charges. The highest one, vehicular carjacking, depends upon very significant evidence that the state's attorney requires, and rightfully so. I don't know if Kim wants to speak to that issue, but we have made progress, and I'll let the superintendent talk about that.
So we have a higher percentage of the cases we charge being the vehicular hijacking charge. The challenges, of course, is people are masked up much more, hooded up, hard to identify. So we charge with the possession of a motor vehicle and or the criminal trespass to vehicle. We charge them with something, even though likely many times when these offenders are backed up. And yes, we are looking at the pre-pandemic levels as the baseline. We want to be below that. So the pandemic levels is really not the way to measure success. We've had a 23% reduction, but again, that's not against 2019 or 18 or 17, or the lowest years that we've had even before that. And that's really our baseline, trying to reduce it down enough to where we have a significant reduction. So we'll keep committing resources. But again, I think the mayor alluded to this. A strong recidivism strategy is really the next levels of this. How do we get, which is half of the number, our young people away from this type of behavior? When they're arrested multiple times, we've had young people arrested in their home. We go and the parents help us, and they got this bag of fobs where they have multiple stolen car fobs. So there's something going on here with recidivism of our young people in this category of crime. And until we, with the courts and the state's attorney, come up with a recidivism strategy, really it's going to be in our juvenile courts, we'll come up with a strong recidivism strategy. We don't want to be chasing our tail on this. We'll have small reductions, but really the big reduction is about a recidivism strategy that works.
And I'm sorry, just to follow up on that, Mayor Lightfoot, you talked about accountability. You also said lock up and throw away the key for an 11-year-old is not a reasonable solution.
Right.
What does accountability look like if you all kind of agree that long incarceration is not a good option for especially young people?
Well, for example, one of the things that we've been talking about with our county stakeholders is making sure that before these young people walk out of the courtroom door, after they're brought before a judge for charges, that they are notified of an array of community-based interventions that could help them. Whether it's cognitive behavioral therapy, whether it's mentorship programs. We have a program that we stood up in 2020 called SCAN that specifically is focused on justice-involved young people. So with ARP, we have expanded and are really trying to stitch back together the social safety net that got shredded through the pandemic, which frankly I think is a big cause of this uptick in violence, both in juveniles, but also in adults. But there's an array of things that are available literally in every neighborhood and across this region that we want to make sure gets in front of those judges, but also the public defenders and then the young people. Because I'm convinced that if we can make measurable progress, if we use the resources that are right now at our fingertips, but we haven't connected the dots, and we've got to have collaboration with the courts and the public defenders in order to be able to do that. I'm confident that we will make progress on this. And this is part of the working group. That's one of the agendas of the working group is on this very issue. But the superintendent, I think, has said it succinctly. We can't have juveniles be part of the problem of recidivism. We've got to intervene before that happens.
Thanks, Mayor. Amy Jacobson.
Thanks. Superintendent Brown, I have a question for you. What do you recommend residents do to protect themselves? And do you think it's time to have people get their concealed carry permits and protect themselves that way?
That's wrong-headed. More guns don't solve problems. Again, police are responding. We don't know if the citizen is someone participating in the crime who's armed, maybe very well-intentioned. In every instance where you give the example of adding a gun to a situation, it makes it much more dangerous, less safe for all of us. But one of the things I would say as far as tips, we've said this repeatedly, and the district commanders in all of our districts put out crime prevention tips. Be aware of your surroundings. Park in lighted areas. Have a plan to park and return back to your car in an area that's well lit and well traveled. I mean, it's just thinking through the process of if I'm going to be a victim of carjacking, what are some of the things I can do as far as where I am, being aware. If you can, travel in pairs or more to where someone is with you. Have your cell phone and your packages secreted in a way where they're not easily stolen from inside your car. Don't make your car a target by having valuables inside the car. as well as, don't leave your car running. That seems simple. I said this last intentionally because this is the most important. The most prevalent area where we can, as all of us, reduce carjackings is not to start your car and leave it unattended running. That would prevent a significant number of these cars stolen and these carjackings happening. Thank you.
And Mayor Lightfoot, I know you're an attorney, and I know you respect the 3 branches of government. With this TRO that the judge signed in Sangamon County, with the restrictions, setting people free from wearing masks and quarantining, why is it that a collective bargaining agreement is in place? Well, I know that there's a collective bargaining agreement in place, and why are you ignoring the judge's order when it comes to this?
Well, we're not ignoring the judge's order. If you look at the details of the judge's order, the judge specifically, my understanding is, exempted those districts where there was a collective bargaining agreement in place that allowed for mask wearing. So we believe that while I don't agree with the judge's order overall, and the governor has obviously already spoken about the fact that he's going to ask the Attorney General to appeal it, the judge's order, as I understand it, and I haven't had the opportunity to look at it yet, but I will. The judge's order, as I understand it, specifically exempts collective bargaining agreements where there is an agreement between the school district and the union to allow for mask wearing. So we're, I think, completely consistent in the heartland with what the judge's order is.
Thanks a lot, Mayor. That's a wrap, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.